first of all, to the Excellence 005 session number 8, which is the last session of the series. And I think the best way to really reflect on the various inputs we've had and the excellent presentations is to see how that fuel in terms of knowledge and the exchanges that took place can serve us for moving forward in the future. And I have selected a theme of values-driven performance as the way forward, because you will see from the presentation and the case study I'm going to share with you tonight that as we move forward in the future, everything that is done in a business context has got to be evaluated from the point of view of walking the talk, from the point of view of how the values are made to count in the organization, from the point of view of carrying people, because knowledge-based economy and knowledge-based management means that there is only one asset from now on. And any organization that ignores, therefore, its people will do so at its own peril. So values are going to be more tangibly talked about and evaluated than ever before. And we need to understand whether we're just talking about a value statement that sits on the wall, whether it is something that you will print on a piece of paper and distribute to all the employees, or whether we're talking about something much more fundamental, something more pervasive that drives the business. And I would like to position the presentation from the point of view of the latter, and that is, how do we really drive the performance top-down using values as the yardstick for evaluating our performance? So maybe a couple of quotes to start with, and that is about the meaning of values. This is from a book called Man's Search for Meaning. And it says that what man actually, by the way, this is a different handout you have. Some of the slides you have are here. Some of the slides you don't. I promise we will get you a copy tomorrow. So what man actually needs is not a tensionless state, but rather the striving and the struggling for a worthwhile goal, a freely chosen task. We all like to be stretched, and we all like to feel that we are valuable and being valued. So what man needs is not the discharge of tension at any cost, but the call of a potential meaning waiting to be fulfilled by him. I think that's really deep, and that says a lot. And if we are saying that in the 21st century we have human capital, we have people as the key asset, therefore we have to treat them in this way. The Maslow theory is really about, nowadays, about self-actualization, is about achievement, and it's about self-pride. And in an intellectual, knowledge-based context, this is really more so than before. The values and beliefs consider any great corporation, one that has lasted over many years. I think you will find that it owes its resiliency not to its form of organizational or administration skills, but to the power of what we call beliefs and the appeal that beliefs have for its people. This is Thomas Watson in the 50s, in the early 50s, was the founder of IBM, and who at that time acknowledged that IBM is being built by the formidable ideas and innovative capability that it had. And of course that message was carried onwards from generation to generation. And then the last thing in terms of quotes I wanted to mention, which will be the basis for tonight's presentation, is really the leadership focus of values. And we have to have leadership that is deeply, deeply concerned with the institutionalization of values, the creation of a value system that drives the organization top down. And that is what creates good standards of not compliance, but of momentum, of synergy, of passion, of innovativeness. And that is really the guide that people want nowadays. You know, the likes of ISO 9000 and TQM and Baldrige and the European Quality Model, all of these models are enablers, but they are not really what generates passion. what generates passion is belief, and what comes from belief is something that is written, that is profound, that we really espouse to, and that we have signed on to. You know, people when they join an organization, that's what they evaluate first, not whether an organization has got several badges and you know, have won several prestigious awards. So I think that this is really the task of leadership in the 21st century. Why do we need values? And I called it here the value of values. It's because values should drive the business. In other words, from a top-down perspective, strategic planning needs to have as an underlay the value system, the various things that bring people together. And if we are talking about the decision-making process, we cannot do it as a detriment of the culture of the organization or the future of the organization or the common contract that exists between employees and managers and stakeholders alike. That's what people coming together. So the decisions that you would expect managers to make, generally speaking, should be based on preserving the heritage, the culture, the mesh that keeps that momentum going, not necessarily the mission. If the mission is designed being inspired by the value system, then we don't have a problem, because whatever we do, we know we are within the boundaries of what we want to do. If the mission, however, is short-sighted and short-term driven, in some cases, you know, it has to happen that way, then we have to really say, if we make those kind of decisions, what will it do for our business? What would it do to our brand and to the heritage that we have created and the previous generations of people who worked in the organizations have left us with? So it brings us to this topic of culture, you see, and to me, organizational culture is a topic that is very interesting, and we could take a long time, you know, just elaborating on it. But I want to link it to values, because the values create the culture, so to speak, and the values are measured or evidenced by or evaluated by the behavior that we see, which surfaces outside. So this slide here gives you a comparison of two styles of corporate cultures. One, which is the blue one, the unadaptive, where core values are really about the individuality side, the, if you like, the for me only or me only kind of perspective. Or the, if you like, the infighting, or the prima donnas, or the silo effect, or the playing safe kind of game, or the sweeping things under the carpet. And that is evident. I mean, these are values that you observe. I mean, they are espoused values by some individuals who like to create divide, who like to create rule, who like the power game, and some others who become victim of something that they haven't espoused to. They're not happy with, they haven't bought into, but they are part of the game, so they have to play the game for survival. So in terms of the common behavior, it's really about, as I said, the unwritten rules. It's about playing the game, it's about bureaucracy, and it's about really the defensive approach, and it's about not rocking the boat. It's about, you know, I don't lose as long as you lose. That kind of thing, as opposed to what we call an adaptive style of corporate culture, where the corporate values are really about the common contract. We care for the customer. We have to really focus on the needs of our stockholders, employees, and we have to put in place something that creates alignment, that drives us together, i.e. an infrastructure, some systems, management processes, and so on and so forth. How do we visually see the adaptive corporate culture with common values? We see it because we have harmony, we have if you like, value added. We have synergy between people. People don't want to stick to the don't rock the boat kind of paradigm. They want change, they want improvement, and they want to serve the customer better. And I think that there is nothing in between. You know, either you're red, you're adaptive, you're progressive, you're passionate, your values drive you, the behaviors reflect the values, there is no discourse from that point of view. Or you're blue, where you have the divide and rule, and you have the silo mentality, and you have the lack of synergy. And obviously this is reflected not just internally, but it's reflected outside, because those kind of organizations that live in that paradigm are not world class. You know, they can dream for centuries to become world class, but they will never be. So I wanted to give you through this slide the influence that corporate values, core values, can create in an organization. Let's spend some minutes, few minutes here to correlate two things here. One is, how do we give something to the employee? In other words, whether the organization works hard enough to meet employees' needs at various stages. So that's the axis, x-axis. And then the other one is the value added that we create for the employee, but also what they give back to the organization. So there are different levels there, and I will explain each one of them in turn. But I just want you to visualize that this is, if you like, an evolutionary process where you have people, for instance, who work you know, for physical needs. It's the Maslow theory. But also they have other unfulfilled needs, and then they have their own self-actualization, the emotional needs, so to speak. This value progression curve, incidentally, is used in many formats, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of the history. It's created by somebody called Michael Bash, and it's really a way of evaluating commitment of organizations to their employees. The systems that exist at the moment, like the investors in people, like the climate surveys, the attitude surveys, and so on, they fall very short because they don't actually measure the progression, the commitment of an organization to give their employees what they have, they can expect. We get a lot of data on you know, salaries increases, on performance evaluation and reward and recognition, on the commitment to training and development and education. Those are all tangible needs. But very often we are very ignorant about some needs which are intangible, which are emotional. And what this model here does, it reflects that very, very strongly. So let's look at them one by one. Physical needs means you brought me to do a job and I do it against a paycheck. Okay? So it's as simple as that. In those instances, there is no development, there is no involvement, and there is no power of influence as far as the employee is concerned. That power of influence is extremely low. Then there is a level which is up called information needs, the value progression information needs. Here, the role clarity is given to the employee. You're doing this job because it impacts internally and externally on customers and suppliers, for example. These activities are critical because they will generate information that somebody else needs, whatever it is. But we provide people with the role clarity, with some guidance, in order to enable them to perform those tasks effectively. And there is another value added that we give employees, and that is to make decisions. So we allow them to make decisions that concern this work environment. And the third thing to really remember from this paradigm is that there is a little bit of self-esteem because personal power is enhanced. I feel I'm in charge. I'm allowed to make some decisions. I'm allowed to change one or two things. But this is only the second level. The third level is where we start to emotionally impact on employees. Here, we are saying to the employees, you're here to stay. You're here to make a long journey with us. You're here because you are passionate about where we want to go. You are part of, if you like, the people who buy into the mission. You're here because you believe in that mission. So we design something that excites employees, that gets them to commit. We create that passion. And we do so by creating a belief in them so that they can create that belief in others. So we stretch the organization's ambitions. So we make the mission statement compelling. So we use words that reverberate in the work environment. So we create that synergy, we create that harmony, and we create that togetherness. So the emotional buy-in here is really sought by top management in order to get that commitment. And the commitment is not just the transactional side, which is I pay you to do a job from 8 to 5, and I pay you a salary of X, and that's the end of it. We subscribe to that contract. Here you're asking for the value added. You're asking for the high levels of performance. In a sense, I would like you to visualize this paradigm of knowledge management. Very often we talk about the explicit versus the implicit or the tacit knowledge base. And we are all scratching our heads by saying, how can we tap into that knowledge? Well, we cannot tap into it, if you like, with a hammer. We tap into it by creating value added to the employees, by making them feel valued and valuable, by engaging them, by empowering them, and by reflecting on that and plotting to see whether emotionally those people are really there for the long run, if you like to stay with the organization. And then we hit something called the glass ceiling. Because at that stage, when we start to get people to be in the place for their own choice, rather than because they have a paycheck at the end, or because they have a little bit of power, we know we are at the breakthrough stage, because that's the transition from what we call the managing things to leading people. Okay? That's the time where you can let go of an employee. The job description is meaningless. You can change it 10,000 times. That employee is not going to be upset because you changed their job title. They are there for other reasons. You have tickled their emotions. Or because we have said to them, we want you to work in this department. We don't want you to work in that department any longer. That's irrelevant for them. They are there for other reasons. And that's really the glass ceiling. And when we get to that stage, we can look at something else called the spiritual level. And that is, we've been mentioning the last few weeks brands like Body Shop and brands like Nike and brands like Microsoft and others. I think you will find that the people who work there, they have other needs, the needs for themselves, something great and something which is shared. They probably see the influence on society. They see the power of the brand, the power of what has been created. And I put there something called contributing through creation and sacrifice. And the word sacrifice means that you're no longer bartering and negotiating for commercial or, if you like, tangible gains. You're there for your spiritual fulfillment because you want to be there, you choose to be there. And I think with this paradigm, we are creating heroes, heroes who are innovators. I mean, if you go and study in detail organizations like 3M, they are creating heroes, all right? The people who work there, they have the spiritual level, all right? They are men and women who are dedicated to science. They're dedicated to technology. They're inventors. They're given space. They're given opportunity to experiment, to make mistakes. They have 15% time, which is their own time, to do what they like. That organization creates heroes. And of course, that organization has long-lasting legacies. I think 2 years ago, they celebrated 100 years of branding and creation. And what was nice in their website, they were reflecting on the generations and generations of heroes that have contributed. And I think you may care to look at the website to really see that when we talk about the spiritual level, it does exist there. So, in a sense, that is where the values start to reflect the evolutionary path. It's not, if you like, an absolute measure of what we can do with values, but it is definitely a relative measure where we can, through proper inculcation of the values and proper emphasis on the meaningfulness of each value that is espoused and shared commonly, we can see the progression through these paradigms. And we can give people something beyond, what anybody can expect. What we want to do now is move a little bit forward by me giving you some examples about some world-class processes and organizations that drive with values. The first one, and maybe the biggest example, is General Electric. And I'm not going to talk in detail about their list of values, but I want just to emphasize that it's one total package that they have. The emphasis is that, Six Sigma drives, but Six Sigma is not even mentioned by word here. The emphasis is quality management drives, but I don't think you will see it in the values here. The emphasis is in the customer, and I hope that the customer is there somewhere. But because the values are not really linked to fads, management concepts, new innovations. The values are there timeless, in a timeless fashion. So you can see here, it's creating a passion for excellence, it's receiving ideas from wherever they are, manage quality to drive costs and speed, giving people the confidence to improve their work environment, having a vision which delivers, reality-based vision, and energizing, synergizing, teamwork, having stretch goals and levels of ambitions, looking at change positively, not a threat, have global brains and build diverse and global teams. After all, this is a global business. And it's serious because, as you see from the quote from Jack Welch here, and he's saying that there isn't a human being in General Electric that wouldn't have the value guide with them. They give them a little card and they carry it in their wallets, in their purse. It means everything, and we live it, he says. And we remove people who don't have those values, even when they post great results. So behavior and values are not linked to results. General Electric employs people who deliver both. They are the right people delivering the right results. If you have people who don't espouse the values, but they want to be the prima donnas, then they can dispense of them. They don't need them. And I think that's interesting to see. Hewlett-Packard, we approach each situation with the belief that people want to do a job and will do so. And they want to do it well. Given the proper tools and support, we attract high caliber, diverse and innovative people and recognize their efforts and contribution to the company. The whole thing is about invention and innovation, and therefore the whole thing, the whole value system is about people. And if you look at HP, over the last 5 or 6 years, 75% of their sales revenue is coming from new products that they have developed within the last 18 months. So it's always innovation, reduction of cycle time, compression, and new launches in the marketplace. And we are all benefiting from the HP products. I mean, it's an amazing story. And that's not done by fluke. It's not done, if you like, by a few people. It's done throughout the whole organization. If you look at the shrinking of the new product development cycle time for printers, it has moved from 2.5, 3 years as a time to market to something like 6 weeks, which is frightening. And it will continue to shrink because that's what drives that, nothing else. And again, this is from the founder, David Packard. He said, we approach this situation with the belief that people want to do a job. I've said it, and it's the thing that they live through now. It's generations before it's still valid now. It's timeless. It's not linked to, if you like, a specific period or a specific stage of the business development. Nike, on the other hand, they actually have 3 key words. This is how they inculcate their values: emphasis on competitiveness and really outsmarting their competitors with better brands, better products, better quality. Inclusiveness, which means that teamwork is important to them, quality is important to them, synergy is important to them, and action means performance-related action, you know, producing results. And I think we know what Nike can do. Another one, Intel. Again, the values are about people. When they're recruited in the first instance, and they have to attend 7 seminars during the first year of employment. That's where they get really, not brainwashed, but they get prepared for the journey. These are the values, this is why they're important, this is the culture of the organization. We want you to spend time here, here and there, and we want you to start to feel that you're going to be part of this family. This is how we do business, these are the written rules, and these are the behaviors we expect from everybody. And this is how we monitor that we've got these behaviors. Monsanto, same thing. They have 3 core values: customer focus, openness to newness and diversity. It's the first organization that has really emphasized on this key word called diversity. I mean, I think a lot of them had to readapt and correct what has gone wrong, including, by the way, the likes of Nike, because they had values that everybody espoused in the States, but when they scaled up their businesses and on a global basis, they didn't walk the talk. So they came under severe criticism, and now they had to rectify the situation. But Monsanto has placed the emphasis, and the emphasis on environmental responsibility. Ex-CEO of Monsanto, he says, we need people who recognize that success and survival are based on anticipation, not on hanging on to the past. And if you remember the adaptive, the blue and red organization, this is precisely what he's saying. You know, you have to move with the time. You know, when a coat gets torn and has got holes in it, you can't clinch to it. You've got to buy another one and move with the time. You can't move forward with the old baggage. So anticipation is real. We must accept that. And hanging on to the status quo as a mindset is a real impediment in many companies. So this is more or less what I was mentioning earlier on about the individual, the emphasis on the value added to the individual, and the emphasis on the knowledge, the knowledge management side. If you can visualize basically that there are 2 challenges. The y-axis basically is what managers must do to create, if you like, a corporate culture driven by values. And the x-axis is what do they need to do in terms of preparing the culture from the people perspective. So in a sense, the starting point is the individual. You know, we have the person, and we need to grow them, we need to mold them so they can buy into the values, and we need to give them the competencies and the certified skills that will enable them to make a difference. That's one level. But by the same time, we need to put the knowledge system that will enable them to perform adequately. Then you've got that red band, more or less, is when we move away from focus just on the individual and we start to synergize and put people together and build different types of capabilities, core competencies and capabilities. At that time, we need a knowledge system that will enable that kind of subculture where you have consensus, where you have to start alignment, where you have to start goal cascade, and then, if you like, the business-oriented project management spirit is shared amongst those people. But if you don't have the highway infrastructure to do that, the soft side alone will not do it. Then, of course, you have beyond that is the organization as one entity. It has got its various policies, it's self-governed, self-regulated, total alignment, facing the customer. And on the other one, we have the subsets which are total aligned, and we have one culture, the corporate culture. And that's really the role of values. The values are putting seeds here and then enabling there, and through really making them count, we can integrate the two together. So it's not dysfunctional, you know, because we have driven it through this model here. And I think you can use this model to evaluate really the level of dysfunctionality in organization, because I am an optimist, but on this one I am sorry to say I'm going to be pessimistically oriented, because what tends to happen is that there is great emphasis now on systems, on databases, on intelligence, on creating these models, these management models like the European quality model, the Baldrige model, etc., you know, and trying to demand that all the knowledge that we have becomes explicit knowledge, etc., etc. But we're not carrying the people to go with it. You see, if it's the interdependency between what we do with the people and what we do in terms of the management infrastructure and the system is really critical. And that's really what brings it together. The glue, so to speak, is the values. You know, I mean, we can even advance some hypotheses today. We can even throw some challenges by saying you cannot be a knowledge-based organization if you don't have an inculcation process for your values, or if you don't use them as the glue. You know, you cannot be a knowledge-driven organization if you don't really start with the individual and bring the individuals together and bring the various teams together and create one unit, one organization that faces the customer, create one welded, integrated value chain. So there's a lot of dysfunctionality, and there is a lot of interesting things that we can do here. So let's just now talk about values-driven performance, which is really the heart of the presentation. Why are we talking about that? Because I think in the 21st century, the game has changed, the rules have changed, the pressure is more intense. And you've seen what happened with the governance and the fiasco that faced a lot of big names that have unfortunately disappeared, big giants. And the challenge is, can we regain public trust? Can we really show the world that CEOs at the top, leaders, when they talk, they can be trusted and they can deliver to the various expectations, the shareholders and other stakeholders? Can we also learn how to leverage from the intangible side? I mean, after all, this is a new science. The market valuation of organizations is different from the physical worth and the physical value, the stock. The indicators that we are trying to create at the moment have not been tried out. They haven't been fully tested. But can we really create that momentum? And the third thing is really about these stakeholders. You know, before, the mindset might have been a little bit arrogant, a little bit ignorant, a little bit ruthless. We ignore, for example, the pressure groups and the activists, and we ignore other stakeholders like the community and society. And as long as the shareholder is happy, then the business is doing well. I think you will agree with me that this has changed significantly now. The activists have got a lot of power. They are big power brokers because they can tarnish and they can damage the brand image of a business. The other thing is the community, society, has also started to have some influence about how the business is perceived and how the net value of that business can grow or can decrease. You know, one fiasco and the community, because maybe the broadcasting technology has given power, because we can tell the world. Yesterday, Bob Geldof made a nasty remark about eBay, and guess what happened? The CEO jumped immediately and he said, yes, we're going to do something about it. 5 years ago, that wouldn't have happened. But the power of media, the power of broadcasting and communication has really made businesses pay attention to that. So they have to walk the talk. They have now to go back to basics. They have to go back and say, is this really what we believe in? Is this what we based our business on? Is this really what our values allow us to do, you know, without upsetting anybody else? And at the end of the day, yes, we can continue to focus on delivering extraordinary shareholder value, but also there's something else now called societal value. And that is adding value beyond the norm, beyond the selfish reasons why businesses are being set up. So I want to share with you a model here which talks about 7 strategies for doing that and tackling all of these challenges. The first one is a suggestion by saying we need to learn how to harness innovation for public good. We don't just develop products because commercially they are profitable and they are going to do the organization a lot of good. The second one is put people at the center, and that is really the care in the community, care in society, care for employees and their future and their jobs and their families and so on. The third one is creating a role model behavior from a business perspective so that they create economic opportunity for micro businesses, small organizations, and so on and so forth. And the other one is extending the value chain by working in alliances with universities, with research centers, with centers of excellence, with suppliers, and so on and so forth. Number 5 is be performance driven in everything. In other words, don't talk about certain things that you might regard as important, but when we come to the end of the financial year, what is published and what is in the public domain are the conventional metrics that assess you from a stock and financial perspective only. And 6 is about the practice of superior governance. This one here, I will come back and emphasize a little bit more on it, is not really about the simplistic aspects of financial governance, internal controls, internal audits, transparency, and so on and so forth. It goes well beyond that. And pursuing a purpose beyond profit, this is really at the heart of values. And is that glue manifesting itself in each one of those 7 strategies, or is it just, if you like, a little bit of veneer and you know, a little bit of decoration? But let's go through each one of them. First of all, harnessing innovation. I think it's easy to innovate from the point of view of the customer. Engineering excellence, technological innovative excellence, new products with new features, unspoken needs of the customers, etc. You know, the power of innovation exists in mankind. But isn't it nice to prompt those scientists, those creative people, by saying, can you think about the basic, i.e. the customer, but can you think about beyond that, i.e. society? And also, innovation has to follow certain trends. We have to revisit. We have to be brave and saying, this will do harm. This is not the right time. You know, this is what society wants now. The lifestyle of people have changed. Let's give people something that they want for their lifestyle. Let's give society something that it wants. The emphasis on the environment, for example, has really demonstrated how much you know, we can innovate. I mean, I've done a lot of work with Unilever companies, you know, the gases they have in their canisters, CFC gases. Those have disappeared. They have disappeared because society has changed. The consumer attitude has changed towards those products. They don't really look at them as daily and as valuable commodities as they used to before. So let's switch the brain into those and let's demonstrate that, etc., etc., etc. Meals on planes, for example. Now, you see, the menus that you get on the airplane, you know, they cater for various needs. They cater for healthy options, you know, and they get, because we are responding to that need. So creating shareholder and societal value means corporate social opportunity. We talk about corporate social responsibility. Here I'm talking about corporate social responsibility. In other words, doing something that solves a society problem. And I'm going to give you one or two examples. This is the pure water purifier developed by Procter & Gamble in conjunction with various centers of disease control. And as a result, by the way, of them realizing that there are thousands and thousands of children and people who die in poor countries every year because they have to drink dirty water. So this innovation was not for commercial purposes to start with. It was for as a social responsibility. But of course, it has made money as well, and that makes sense. DuPont is another organization which is interesting to consider. They have based their commitment to society on something called sustainable growth. If you look at them as a case study, they have done more than any organization in the world in terms of improving work environments, work safety, safety record, all the Golden ROSPA awards, in all their plants around the world. So they are a formidable business from that point of view. They have even used their track record to create a business opportunity for themselves. And they have set standards for other organizations and other industries. But also they have started to work on this idea of innovating so that the cost is not prohibitive, so that these poorer countries can use some of their products, be it consumer products or the agricultural services that they have. And I've just put there a couple of figures. Over the last 10 years, they have increased shareholder value by 340%. But by the same time, they have given something to society by reducing environmental footprint by 60%. So it's environmental emission control, the control of affluent, for example, the discharges, the smokeless technologies, recycling, all of those things. Those are innovations. All of them are innovations because it goes back to what they have committed to in their values. Their values push them to look for sustainable growth and not create business opportunities at the detriment of something that they don't believe in. The next one is speed economic opportunity. Means that can you as a business be a role model for others so that they can feed from you, feed from the expertise and use you as a launch pad. Employee diversity now is a big thing because we enrich the world by giving economic prosperity in different countries and to different people and to different communities. But by the same time, diversity enriches the business ethos. It enhances the culture. It really reinforces that those common values are global espoused values. But also it means that access to expertise and access to the synergy that exists between people is very useful. Businesses now have different chunks and different cultures. Call centers now, you find them in India. In the computer and, if you like, telecommunication businesses, a lot of sub-assembly plants, you'll find them in the Far East, in Southeast Asia, etc. And the R&D centers will exist somewhere else. Supply chain now is being shifted, where you have access to raw materials or local suppliers, and there is good infrastructure for transportation and so on and so forth. It makes business sense, but also it's giving something to the world, it's spreading it out, and that's good. And involving local businesses, small businesses, is about creating economic opportunity. And something for the community, for schools, for example, is giving them access to IT expertise and access to education and training. The Marriott Hotel, for example, they have something called Pathways to Independence programs, which means that they take people off unemployment, former welfare recipients, and they train them free of charge, to give them the potential to work in their hotels all over the world, as waiters, as chefs, etc., etc. So it's really created, if you like, an affinity between the brand, the Marriott, and the local communities, and the employees as well are very proud to serve in a business that cares, because it fits in with their value system. You know? And the end point is Marriott will do very well, because it have a pool of well-trained people that it can tap into, but by the same time, they are doing it in a win-win situation. Damla basically is another one, forming innovative supply chain partnerships. I mean, going to places like Brazil or South Africa. The purpose is to improve quality of their raw materials, because they depend on their supply chain from those types of countries. So it's in their interest to have a presence there. But by the same time, it helps drive poverty down, and it helps people, stop, for example, in Brazil, chopping trees and damaging the rainforest and those kind of things, because there is an alternative source of employment, so to speak. Neelam's and my favorite is Starbucks coffee. And obviously Starbucks has built a formidable brand image around the world. It has transformed, if you like, the modern yuppie young global community. They are the first business in the world, to my knowledge, who have started to offer the opportunity for part-time employees to be stakeholders in the business, to give them share options. And they also started to work with small farmers and coffee producers around the world to link them to their supply chain. Even if you are a small producer of coffee beans, you will get a lot of support from Starbucks, and they will help you with a lot of advice on quality and on distribution of your beans, of your products, and everything else. So that's something to be applauded. The next one is about engaging in new alliances. What it means here is that breaking the mold, not just working, if you like, in this common fraternity. The automobile industry, suppliers and sub-suppliers, they all were in engineering, and they all speak the same language. The airline industry works in the same way, so they're creating these layers of suppliers and smaller suppliers, but they all work in the same industry. This is actually saying work outside the mold, build different types of strategic alliances, enhance the core business and the performance of your business by leveraging in a completely different way, particularly in a knowledge-based economy. So, hospitals now work with airlines. Some of them, they have outsourced their catering, and they work with the airline businesses industries, because that's, the catering there has to be very good. So they learned, something like that, and so on and so forth. So what is written there in red is really that one goal is for improving the business outcomes, but the other goal is leveraging by making communities pay for the charitable work that used to be called the philanthropy kind of perspective. I think communities give something back, and this is an opportunity to say, what do we get back in return? You see, why shouldn't a hospital benefit? I mean, it could be vice versa, couldn't it? I mean, a hospital could have, a fantastic spa and and health club for people who are recovering from operations and everything else. They could use that business for other people in the community, and it will enhance their business, but also it gives something back, etc., etc. So it's out of the box thinking, can educate all of us that we can all forge new alliances based on high leverage. Unilever, for example, they are trying now to use synergy amongst people who have a common goal, a common stake, particularly in the fishing industry, and so that everybody acts responsibly. So they they help with advice, they help with investment in technology, they help with education and awareness and communication programs, and they are helping basically create a common momentum about sustainable fisheries, by putting a lot of resources. Against that, Unilever, being a big player basically in the food industry, wants to offer good products to the global consumer market. So they want some benefits out of it, but this is the way of doing it. Cisco Systems, they work with the United Nations, they work with UNESCO, they work with NATO. Their systems are all over the world. But here is just an example of them working with something like 50 universities in America and 10,000 institutions all over the world, 150 countries in fact, where they are making their technology available. But it's all through building alliances. It's all building a new business model. And the last one, the seventh out of these strategies, is really the performance driven in everything, which means that the challenge for a values driven organization is that the target should not just be based on the conventional financial indicators, but is to add ethical behavior targets, social and environmental performance targets, and to create a culture which helps achieve all of those targets. Because as I said, walking the talk is really the measure of how much belief there is in their values. Many organizations used to produce an environmental report separately, but their financial report for the shareholder is separate. This is calling for something unified, one approach, all the indicators, one philosophy, one belief, one set of values. So, and they report voluntarily on the various performance areas. So the practical superior governance here is creating legitimacy and wider acceptance by stakeholders. In other words, the legitimacy comes from trust and belief, isn't it? If you walk the talk, I can say legitimately that business deserves to exist, deserves to prosper, and deserves to be applauded for the wonderful practices, for the passion that creates, for the wealth that is generated and everything else. So it being an icon, a brand which everybody respects. Increased transparency means we bring other stakeholders closer to the business. We have no fear. We are driven by our values. Increased accountability means we go beyond the norm with compliance, which is the financial city, and emphasize on integrity and an independent overview of all the key areas of corporate performance, which means long term. Top management are not looking for the quick fixes, and they are not really driven by the executive bonus and the executive promotion ladder. They are driven by values. They are there because they care. They are there because they want to make a difference. They are there because they want to leave some legacies behind them. And the last one is about this. So this word is going to grow and grow. Sustainability governance. It means care. That's all. Care for the business, care for the environment, care for society, and care for our employees. So the purpose beyond the profit is the sustainability theme, creating long-term business leadership. And that is simply by saying the clarity of the purpose. Remember, purpose is different from mission. The purpose is timeless. La raison d'être. Why does this business exist? As simple as that. So whoever comes is only a guest, is only a visitor, is only there for part of the journey. And they are responsible, they are the custodians of those principles and values at different generations and different levels. And it means that what you deliver, the tangible side, is really one of the measures that it's working, one of the measures that you are doing what you're supposed to do. But the ultimate measure is whether any business in the world can be evaluated on its ability to improve people's lives and be a force to be reckoned with in terms of changing the world. And I'll give you a couple of quotes here. Purpose, principles, and values are the bedrock of excellence. Okay, so that is how I evaluate leadership. This is how I will evaluate an excellent organization. The manner in which they are articulated and implemented plays a key role in determining a company's strategic direction, its corporate culture, and the policies and incentive system by which it operates and impacts on the world. Right. Now, I am saying take values as the driver, as the glue, and if there is a disconnect, then there is something wrong. Then we create greed, we create, if you like, the fiascos that the world has faced with. We create implications for society, we create disasters, we spoil the environment, we create two tiers in society, we create the them and us. All of those irresponsible acts are a consequence of not using values as the glue. And there are businesses who care. There are businesses who really want to deliver that statement. And this is one of the examples. This particular CEO, John Brown of BP, is well known for his passion and his belief that any business has to be driven by its values. And I have a couple of statements from him. The first one goes, no enterprise or no institution, perhaps no individual, can really succeed without a sense of purpose. A purpose which explains and guides every step. Okay. And then he's more specific here, talks about BP, and he says, our purpose and our fundamental objective is to be one of the world's greatest companies. I, as a chief executive officer, that's what I want to leave behind. That BP as a brand is well known and respected. But that means delivering results and doing our business exceptionally well, day to day. So if you have a dream, work for it. But it also means aligning our activity with the world's needs, leading change and being a force for progress in everything we do. But let's not be selfish. Let's do it in a responsible way, and let's do it by considering the world as our challenge. Just to finish off this presentation, and in order for you to understand that values, performance-driven organizations have a lot of challenges. In order for them to move to the right-hand side of this slide, they really have to change a lot of things. The old paradigm, which is existing at the moment, against all of those critical factors, basically, has to give way to a new way of working, which is softer but more powerful. And after all, we can say that soft is hard. So if I take one or two of those, I don't want to go through the whole thing. If we look at employee involvement, for example, the old paradigm is, as I said, it's not that curve, the progression curve. Is I employ you to do a job, you have a job description, your performance appraisal is against what I set in terms of objectives for you, and you get rewarded accordingly. Right? That worked for a long time, didn't it? The new paradigm is saying that we move away through by creating empowerment, autonomy, trust, and let people basically work together to create synergy. Let more tacit knowledge being put back in the system. And we step back and being more direct and more intense in our leadership, in our ability to develop people. The recipients of what a business does, the usual suspects, as we call them, are the people who invest in the business, the people who have got a direct stake. But the new paradigm says social entrepreneurs, innovators, and anybody else is really, if you like, a recipient of the value created, which goes both ways, and so on and so forth. So it is something that we should aspire to achieve. It's not something that is based on jargon. It is something which is based on the same principles that businesses were based on 100 years ago. But now we are saying values count. Values are a total system. Values are the glue. Performance indicators can be evaluated, from the soft side. So soft is hard. We have to learn to do all of this stuff. So I hope I haven't, created a lot of worry in your minds. But I think time will tell.